Hello, people online. Nice to see so many of you there. Super stoked to have this occasion and opportunity to be introducing you something exciting that we've been working on at Suunto. My name is Aino Aho, and I'm working as Category Marketing Manager here at Suunto. With me today, I have my great colleague, Markus.
Hi there.
And also there online with us, we have our amazing guest speaker, Neil, who will also get to present
Hi.
himself in a bit. So, I guess you have been introduced that something exciting is happening here at Suunto, and that is the case. So we are about to launch an amazing new product next week on Tuesday, the 13th of May at 10 a.m. Central European time. Now, you can see on the slide that basically all information today that we will be sharing to you is confidential until public announcement. We hope that you respect this. This is because we want to gain the best possible momentum and the best possible biggest bang once we come out with this astonishing new product that we are going to be introducing to you. The product itself is made for runners, and before we get more deeper into the mindset of runners and the mindset of the people who might be interested about this product, I'll tell you a few details about this call and about what Suunto is about. So, like said, I just introduced you my amazing colleague Markus. He will be soon explaining you a bit more details about the product itself that we will introduce today. And before that, Neil Baxter online with us today will then explain a bit more about the mindset of the runner. But before going more into detail on that, let's just refresh our minds on what is Suunto about. So some of you online here today are familiar with our brand. Some of you might be a bit more new to the brand. So Suunto really stands for adventure and outdoor sports. It's always been in the core of our brand, which was first founded in 1936. So actually next year we will be celebrating our 90th birthday. What we do is we strive to design for people who are really passionate about the outdoors, and we also designed our products for the athletes who are willing to invest in high quality equipment to support their goals, whether that's crossing the Atlantic, whether that's reaching the highest peak or the deepest ocean. Here on the slide that you see here today, we have a bit of a mindset of the sort of target group that we have in mind when we designed our products. So you can see that we equip people with our sports watches. We have also, everything has started from compasses and the adventurous life that's surrounding the exploration. And also in the recent years, we've been investing into headphones, and some of you might also have had the opportunity to try them out, and we're super stoked that these have also been created having the mentality of the sports athletes and performance athletes in mind. So, without further ado, I would love to have my great, our great Neil then explaining you more about the mindset of what is it about the runner's mindset, and what is it really about when we think of running? Why is it the big boom? Why is it so happening nowadays? Why it is trending? So without further ado, let's have Neil. I'll hand over my microphone to Neil. And one more reminder before we let him talk is that we will have time for questions and answers in the end of the call. So do not hesitate to share your comments on the chat, and we will have discussions on those then after Neil and Markus. So now let's get over to Neil.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. It's great to be here. Let's get my slides up on the screen. So as you know, my name's Neil Baxter. I'm a social scientist, and I spent many years researching both the history and sociology of running. That included a 5-year research project at the University of Warwick in the UK on running culture, the results of which were published in the book you can see on the screen now. Today, though, I want to talk to you about something, well, I guess a deceptively simple question. Why do we run? Later, we'll look at this through a psychological lens and use some of my research data to explore motivations for running. But first, I'd like to take a bit of a long view to think about how this simple sport first emerged as a plausible answer to so many of the questions, needs, and anxieties of modern life. So what comes to mind when we think of a runner? If I'd been asking that question in the 1950s, most people would probably think of something a bit like this. A young person, probably male, probably white, a club member, maybe a university man, running at an athletics track with a narrow focus on competition. And that was the dominant idea of runners and running for the majority of the 20th century. In fact, when the first recreational runners, joggers, appeared on America's streets in the 1960s, many reported being abused by motorists and even stopped and questioned by the police. Because with no clear frame of reference beyond that of the serious athlete, people couldn't make sense of what ordinary middle-aged folk were doing, running very slowly down the sidewalks of American suburbia. They assumed they must be odd or antisocial or even suspicious. But today, everything has changed. Now, when we think about runners, we're more likely to imagine something like one of these images. Ordinary people of every background, all shapes and sizes, running on roads, in parks, on trails, running pretty much everywhere, and with a wide variety of motivations, from competition to losing weight, raising money for charity, or just spending time in the great outdoors. So far from an activity for antisocial elements, running has become a completely conventional practice with many strong positive meanings. So much so that presidents and prime ministers from the Bushes, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Tony Blair and Boris Johnson in Britain, Justin Trudeau in Canada, Nicolas Sarkozy in France, to name just a few, have all been eager to show off their running credentials to journalists and press photographers. Running has become an instantly recognised signal of energy, discipline and determination, the symbol of a politically safe pair of hands. In fact, so powerful are these associations today that some of Sarkozy's critics even describe jogging as a major weapon of media manipulation. What we understand running to mean, then, what we think it can do for us, and who it's for, have been utterly transformed over the last few decades. So how did this happen? Well, it really began in 1960s America, where a long post-war boom in prosperity meant that the lives of ordinary people were becoming more comfortable and less physically demanding. Now, obviously, that was a good thing in many ways, but doctors had started noticing a rapid increase in certain forms of illness connected to inactivity, and particularly heart disease. You can see the slide on the screen there shows heart disease deaths per 100,000 population spiking from during the middle of the 20th century. The problem was, at the time, few middle-aged people exercised regularly, and it remained controversial as to whether it was even safe for them to do so. And as we've seen, exercising in public was still regarded as a strange and dubious activity. So experts suggested a wide range of light exercise regimes people could undertake in the privacy of their own homes. Everything from chair aerobics to hula hooping to whatever this is on the screen now. But unsurprisingly, none of these things really took off. The idea that gentle running might be part of the solution was introduced to America in 1963. After the track coach and a future Nike impresario, Bill Bowerman, had encountered the sport on an athletics trip to New Zealand. To start with, the jogging club he founded on his return was based in the privacy of the University of Oregon's athletics track. But soon, there were too many people turning up for that to be practical, and Bowerman encouraged joggers to brave the disapproval of their fellow citizens and take to the streets. He wrote a book to promote his new fitness system, which caught the public imagination and quickly sold 1 million copies, reinforcing his key messages: running is safe and healthy, and jogging country is everywhere. And so, as the ideas he promoted started to spread, running gradually began to impose itself as a public act. And by the end of the decade, 3 million Americans were already up and running. So, recreational running emerged as a mass participation sport in direct response to public anxieties about health. But what I think is so interesting about the sport is that over the years, it's absorbed many other meanings to resonate with the attitudes and fashions of different places and periods. In the 1970s, this included accommodating two very different forces in American life: the hippie counterculture and later, the rise of neoliberal individualism. During the 1960s, the counterculture had seen a huge amount of political activism amongst young people in America, but few of their utopian ideals were ever realised. By the 1970s, disillusionment started to set in, and the quest for self-improvement and transformation started to turn inwards into a search for inner enlightenment and personal growth. Some people took psychedelic drugs to open the doors of perception. Some meditated, some chanted mantras, but others jogged. Best-selling books like The Zen of Running and Running and Being started to imbue jogging with countercultural spiritual significance, claiming it could bring meaning and a sense of cosmic belonging to empty lives. In The Joy of Running, it even started to be touted as a powerful but free form of therapy, and that's an idea that resonates down to today. So writers at the time were saying things like, running establishes a better harmony with ourselves and the world. It creates a deep inner penetration of mind and soul. It is ego transcending. I simply perceive as I run. I feel high. And the idea of the runner's high originated in this period. Running produces a flowering of new colours in the soul. So by the mid-1970s, jogging was rapidly emerging as a kind of spiritual panacea. But America in the 1970s wasn't all about the search for inner tranquility. It was also the decade when the new political doctrine of neoliberalism began to shape how Americans saw the world. Essentially, this was about promoting self-interest, deregulation and competition as the engines of economic progress. But socially and culturally, that led to a greater emphasis on citizens being held individually responsible for their lives' outcomes. This seems to have imbued jogging with a new moral value. It was a sign of taking care of yourself and of your health, of good citizenship, of self-reliance, and of mental strength. Runners and runners' bodies started to become fashionable symbols of willpower, discipline, independence, and success. And there you can see Farrah Fawcett and Lee Majors, the $6 Million Man, jogging on the cover of People magazine in 1977. And in urban centres like New York, the once humble jogger gained a new confidence. And magazines were filled with articles saying things like, runners have greater emotional stability, self-assurance and courage than ordinary people. They show their aggressions more readily, but not in a bad way, but in ways directed towards life goals. They look down on other people, thinking of them as bad, lazy, indolent and immoral. They are an intimidating new class, the physical elite. But really, this wasn't a new elite. It was just the old elite in jogging clothes. Late 1970s joggers were said to be extremely professional, 9 times more likely to be scientists. They are rich, white collar, white and well off, earning about $30,000 a year and probably holding a graduate degree. By the end of the decade, running was seen as a normal thing for a businessman to do and had become a kind of marker of social status and aspiration. Until the 1970s, or the end of the 70s certainly, Europe had seemed pretty much immune to the running bug that was sweeping across America, but inevitably that would change, and quite suddenly. It's nicely illustrated here by 3 excerpts from British newspapers over just 3 years at the end of the 70s. In 1977, jogging, almost a mania in America, is not becoming a mass pursuit here. Brits are too firmly ensconced behind their lunchtime mounds of shepherd's pie and foaming pints of bitter. Not exactly a fitness culture in 77, but by 1978, jogging is Britain's latest fad. And just a year later, in 1979, a new craze has swept the British Isles, and an estimated 2 million people of all ages are now jogging to keep fit. And Jogging magazine started being published that year as well. Of course, from its earliest days, not everyone was satisfied with simply jogging, and mass participation in races have been growing steadily throughout the 1970s. For those seeking the ultimate challenge, the marathon soon became the obvious choice. So since it was first run in 1897, the marathon had been considered an extreme and dangerous test right on the limits of human capabilities. So this was a picture from the end of the 1908 London Olympic Marathon, which really kind of burnished the legend of the marathon, as Dorando Pietri, who crossed the line first, collapsed 6 times on the final lap and had to be helped across the line by race officials. He was subsequently disqualified. Newspapers described it as a race for men of iron, and a horrible yet fascinating struggle between a set purpose and an utterly exhausted frame. And in the early 20th centuries, rumours swirled of inexperienced athletes collapsing and dying during races. By the 1970s, the marathon retained much of this dangerous glamour, and indeed it was still considered by many to be too extreme for women. Remember, there wasn't a women's marathon even at the Olympic Games until 1984, unbelievably. So when this supreme test of physical endurance opened up to recreational runners, completing the distance was believed to say a lot about a person's toughness, stoicism, and their ability to put up with pain. And at the time, even more so than today, these were attributes that were strongly associated with men and masculinity, and completing the race came to be seen by many as a kind of test of macho toughness. And this proved very appealing to the ambitious, overwhelmingly male executives and yuppies of the competitive 1980s, as the participation figures seem to show. So this is the number of marathon finishers worldwide, spiking around the end of the 70s, early 80s. So despite this huge increase in marathon participation, only about 4% of runners at the London Marathon, for example, in 1981, were women. And that's about probably a quarter of what you might expect given the state of the wider sport at the time. Running participation rates leveled off in the 1990s, in the West at least, but by the early 2000s, the second wave of the running boom had begun, driven largely by changing attitudes around women and sport that led to a major influx of female runners. New demographics meant new tastes, motivations and needs, prompting event organisers to offer alternative forms of running with different meanings and values, focusing on fun, community, fundraising or adventure alongside traditional competition. And these demographic changes had indirect effects too. So as marathons became more inclusive, they began losing their status as a macho test, which caused some runners to seek new and more extreme tests elsewhere. So just as women were entering marathons in increasing numbers, we see that ultra marathons and mountain or fell running started to surge in popularity. And the very people joining these tough sports around the turn of the millennium tended to be, and remain to this day, predominantly the same privileged white males who once dominated the marathon. So by upping the ante, running could remain a way of expressing both athletic and social distinctions. So as a result of this rich history, many ideas, meanings and forms of significance have been attached to the simple act of putting one foot in front of the other, creating many ways of being a runner and many reasons to run. So now let's have a look at how that shows up in the data. This chart draws on my own data from a big running survey that I did a couple of years ago, and shows the proportion of runners who reported various reasons to run as either very important in blue or quite important in orange. You can see that almost all of the motivations were cited as at least quite important by more than half of the runners. So clearly, most of us run for a wide variety of reasons. Focusing just on the strong motivations in blue, you can see there's a lot more variation. Many people run to get fit, because it feels good, and to test themselves in some way. But high levels of competitive motivation come in relatively far down the table, at about 21% of runners. In fact, that's well below those relating to physical and mental well-being. But these are very general observations, so let's try and break this down a little bit. So here you can see some differences in the prevalence of strong motivations for male and female runners. So looking again at competition at the very top of the chart, we can see that the 21% that we saw on the previous slide hides a big difference between the genders of about 11 percentage points. So in fact, only 16% of women reported this as a high motivation compared to 27% of men. And indeed, overall, we can see that women were more likely to place an emphasis on physical and mental well-being, whereas men were more likely to identify competition and running fast as an important motive. In fact, also, women tend to name more different motivations than men do. But these are, of course, averages. If you dig a bit deeper into the data, you'll find that women who report being lifelong runners are just as competitive as the equivalent men. But women who join the sport as adults have much lower levels of competitiveness than their male counterparts. And this might be connected to the fact that men consistently rated themselves as more talented than the equivalent women did. And self-confidence, even when it's unfounded, is strongly correlated with competitive interests. Now let's look at age. So I've split the male and female runners up here into two different columns, as you can see that there are some differences between them. As you can see, motivations evolve through life. So each of these bars represents a decade from 20s up to 70s. And with the green bar representing the highest point in the motivations throughout life. So running fast, competitive motivations, peaks young and slowly falls, albeit with an interesting spike in the oldest runners, and particularly oldest female runners in their 70s. Mental well-being is the most important for people in their 30s, dropping rapidly as runners age, very rapidly in the case of women in their 70s, as you can see. Managing weight peaks as a motivation in middle age for women in their 40s and for men in their 50s. And socializing with other runners becomes more and more important for older runners. We can also look at variation in motivation across different forms of the sport. So here are 6 motivations and their levels in 5 different forms of running. Track athletes, which is in yellow, have the highest levels of competitive and social motivations. Probably the social motivations are connected to the fact that athletics is almost always practiced as part of a club. Hill runners are the most interested in engaging with nature, as you might expect. Mental health related motivations are highest for half marathon runners, although they're pretty similar across the board, really. Joggers are the most focused on improving their appearances, and by joggers I just mean runners that don't engage in any form of competition at all. And obstacle course racers are the most likely to want to raise money for charity, which is a relatively low frequency motivation overall. So you put all of that together and you'd expect different types of running to appeal to different social groups, and so it proves. So this is the data from Sport England's latest Active Live survey, which is a massive survey of over 100,000 people each year, focusing on sport and physical recreation. So here we can see that the gender balance of different forms varies a lot. So in mountain or fell running and triathlon, men outnumber women by 2 to 1 or more, whereas in obstacle course racing, the balance is much more even. And in treadmill running, there's almost no difference at all. This chart shows how participation rates in different forms of running vary across age groups. So starting from the baseline of participation levels among 16 to 19-year-olds on the left, you can see that athletics participation in orange falls off a cliff by the time people are in their late 20s, whereas obstacle course racing, which is in dark green, remains fairly stable until people are in their 50s, when it too plummets. Mountain racing and triathlon in purple and light green at the top of the 2 highest curves on the graph actually increase in popularity until well into middle age. And on social class, again, mountain running and triathlon stand out, with people from wealthy areas more than twice as likely to participate than people from deprived areas. Of course, this isn't just caused by motivational differences. So access to certain remote places, expensive equipment, and time to train can all be easier to access for some groups than for others. And the meanings and marketing around different types of running can make them more or less attractive to people of different backgrounds too. And perhaps all of this helps explain why my own data suggests that the longer a race is, the higher the overall socioeconomic status of its average participant, as you can see here. So this chart shows a ranking for combined education, highest level of education and income combined for various forms of running. And you can see that from the left to the right, the races get longer and longer, and the level of education and income increases. So over the last few decades, running has transformed from a narrowly focused and socially narrow competitive sport into a vast, sprawling set of practices and communities, each answering different needs, attracting different types of people, and offering distinctive ways of laying claim to different forms of sporting and social identity. So where do data, tracking, and Suunto's Run Watch fit into the picture? Well, running is an unusual sport in being so easily translatable into meaningful, shareable numbers that shape our experiences and feed our motivations. It wasn't always this way, of course. Before there were reliable ways of measuring time, runners' speed could only be expressed through metaphors and comparisons with fast animals. So in our earliest literature, Homer's Iliad, the great hero Achilles is described as running like a horse galloping across a plain. In the Dark Ages, King Harold Harefoot of Norway was given the name Harefoot because he was supposedly as fast as a hare, and Henry V of England was said to have been quick enough to run down and catch a deer with his bare hands. But from 1700, we've been able to be more precise, because it was then that watches were first becoming accurate enough to be used to measure race times. The earliest one that I've discovered is from a newspaper in 1708, and that the time it gave was 19 minutes for 4 miles, run on a horse racing track in Yorkshire by a man called Levi Whitehead, who is said to be the fastest runner of his day, which gives you some idea of running standards 300 plus years ago. The time's only reported to the nearest minute, but that's not surprising given that watches back then lacked second hands, as you can see on the top of the screen here. But as timepieces improved during the 18th and early 19th centuries, racing the clock for a wager became an extremely popular sport in Britain in particular. So here's a notice from a newspaper in 1813 advertising an attempt at a 4.5 minute mile, which was then thought virtually impossible. The £100 staked against it being achieved would equate to about €10,000 today. So there was a lot of money in running even back then. So tracking, sharing and comparing performance data has deep roots in running culture. But today, of course, we can do far more than just measure times. We can track our performances, monitor our bodies and our health, explore routes and share our efforts online, creating new forms of motivation and community that would have been unimaginable only a few decades ago. So Suunto's Run Watch supports almost every kind of runner, offering insights, feedback and enhanced experiences tailored to individual motivations and goals. It's part of a long and rich tradition of running's embrace of innovation, absorbing new ideas and new technologies to enrich a sport that, as a result, offers a fascinating window on who we were, who we are, and how we live our lives today. And I realise this has been a whistle-stop tour through the history and the data. So if you'd like a bit more time to look over the charts and statistics, please do visit my website, which is up on the screen now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Neil. Such inspiring story about running. I love to hear the history and the evolvement of running, the sport we all love. So now I will continue to talk a little bit about the topic of today. So as Suunto, we are used to talk to different kinds of athletes, and we know that people do very many different sports, and running is only one of them. It is the biggest one, though, and we are very used to talk to runners. We are especially well penetrated already in the trail running community, so we know that community well. But today we are going to speak a little bit more about running as a sport, and the product we are going to talk about is very much about running. But as Suunto, we are also serving some other adventurous sports. The reason we speak about running is we are looking at the stats, and it's really a super popular sport. It's not only our own database showing that running is the most participated sport, but also in general we are hearing statistics about really big numbers out there. People are attending to races. The race numbers are really big in different countries, different parts of the world. So it's really globally a big sport. Also, the pandemic, running was one of the sports that really boomed during the pandemic. But even after the pandemic, we have noticed that the running keeps growing as a sport. And especially interesting is to see that the Gen Z actually is also very keen about running, and it's becoming more and more of a social event, like Neil also expressed a little bit. It's really a sport that people seem to love today, and for many different motivations, like we saw. Now that's the reason that today we want to present to you what Neil already gave a glimpse about the Suunto Run, the new product, lightweight and small performance watch, especially designed for runners. And we are proud to present this product because I think it's superb for running. It's really light. It has a bright AMOLED screen. It's very thin. And as I said, it sits nice and comfortably on your wrist, super light with a high performance screen. It has a digital crown for easy navigation, easy browsing through the menus and exercise screens. It has a 22mm strap attachment, which means that you can also swap that to other of our accessory straps. So it is a nice add-on to have that kind of possibility. So it is really a lightweight and snug watch that will sit nicely on the runner's wrist, which I think is great. In its own position, it is really great in battery life. So we have 20 hours with the best possible tracking of the GPS. So you can really make those long runs out there. Not the longest ones, but you can make ultra runs, let's say it so. And in daily use, if you use it as a watch, which many people do, it will last up to 12 days. And all of these, of course, depend a little bit on what settings you have on and how you use the watch. So you need to calculate a combination of these depending on how much you exercise. We have made some effort to really make this watch especially user-friendly. So we did some improvements into the user interface, and we made some of the menus more colorful. We adjusted some widgets a little bit compared to earlier watches so that it is as good as possible to access all the different features of the watch, and we believe that it is really user-friendly and easy to use watch, still being like top of the line in terms of features. This watch will come out in 4 different colors. So you will have the lime color, super bright. I actually have it on my wrist here. The frost gray, the all black, and the coral orange. So you will be very visible in the races out there. It's a flashy and nice looking watch out there, and it will be really cool to use. Now, when talking about features in this watch, I want to divide it into 3 main topics. Improving your training, that's, I think, one of the main reasons people buy these kind of tools in the first place. You want to get better in what you do. Then we have also talking about a little bit the sports specificity here. So it's about running, yes, but we also have some other sports that we can serve with this watch as well. More about that in a minute. And then about daily life. So we know many of, if not all of the users that buy our watches, they want to use also the watches in their daily life for other things when you are not out running. So we want to have some things for them also in the daily life. About improving your training. So there are many things that we need to do to improve your training. You want to stay motivated. You will have tools to keep yourself running, keep your streak up, and stay motivated for running. But of course, then the health impact, and as you heard from Neil's presentation, especially the male, they want to get faster and faster. So it seems that that's an important thing as well for improving your training. In our training tools, we are looking into, well, 3 quite essential topics when we talk about training and racing. So first one is the following your daily training, following your training load. So we are using the training stress score approach here, and you get a training stress score from every log you do, and then we follow up your chronic training load over a longer period and your acute training load over a shorter period, and when you compare those, you can see how much recovery you would need. And the recovery part is then, of course, essential if you want to stay fit and go into races or stay without injuries. You really need to take care of your recovery. So we have an own widget with 3 different topics inside the widget about recovery. So that's really essential if you want to train well. And the last one is following your progress. So how much faster are you actually getting? And we have a separate section for that in the watch, and also in our Suunto app. I will show you a bit later. So you can really get super extensive tools to see what you are doing in your training, to see how you are evolving as an athlete. If you want to go and race, you can recover well before the race, and you have the tools in place to do it for you. There are a few things that we have built into this watch that is especially nice for not only runners, maybe also other sports. So for example, the interval planner, you can use it in Suunto app, build your own structured workout, go out with the watch and get guidance for when you need to recover, when you start your interval, how long it will take, and get a summary of your interval training. So that's a super handy tool and very much requested by runners especially. So that's a great thing to have. In the middle screen here, you can see you have some, let's say, motivational things or also pacing tools. So the Ghost Runner is a tool where you can adjust what we call a Ghost Runner. You can adjust your own pace and that ghost runner will then virtually running ahead or behind you, and you will see the distance to that ghost runner all the time when you run. And you can also challenge your friends. So if you have someone you follow in Suunto app, you can go and pick a log from that friend and go out and let's say race against that log. So it will give you the guidance of the pace of that log, and you can go out and race against that one. And then we have the last one is a bunch of goals that you can set for your trainings. You can have a distance, duration, calorie and ascent goals. So you can set up a goal for that session, you will have a progress bar, and you will get a trophy at the end, so that you are kind of have that carrot in front of you when you go out and do that run that you want to perform. And one of the super important tools for all of our watches, and also for this watch, is the Suunto app. So the Suunto app is an application. We have it for Android and iOS, and it's sort of the sports hub for you. You will find all the information from your training, your individual exercises. You can plan those workouts here. You have a coach that will verbally tell you where you are with your training, where you are with your recovery, how you are progressing. You can individual logs, you can look at all the metrics. We have only a small part of it here on the third screen. So you have graph metrics, you have summaries, you will see lap information, you can add pictures, tags, so a lot of different information. And on the right side here, you can see a summary view where you can actually view your training. For example, group it as a weekly grouping or a monthly grouping, so you can see how much you have been doing, and duration, distance, TSS score, for example. In the columns, you can actually adjust those visible columns there. So really handy tools for doing the sports. And these are the same tools that you get also with our top of the line products. So even this being a lower price point product, it is offering the same tools that you have on our flagships. I speak about running. So running is the essence of this product, and we have built something special for runners, but we also have something for other sports as well. For runners especially, if we talk about specifics for runners, we have, for example, the track running mode, which is an own mode for running on a track, like athletic outdoor track, where you can adjust the track length. So you can set it to be 400 meters, but you can also select one of the lanes from 1 to 9 on the track. And what it does, it will exactly measure your distance with the help of GPS, but it will locate you on that exact track location. So you will get the exact, let's say, more exact distance than if you would have only GPS tracking, which can be off or on with some meters on every round. And then we have a marathon mode. For marathon runners, it's also still a super popular sport. So people do go and run marathon races, and in this particular marathon mode, you will get an estimate of your finish time while you are running, so you can sort of pace yourself a little bit if you are running too fast or too slow, so you can a little bit know in ahead what's going to happen. We also have a navigation as part of the solution, even though I didn't raise it as one of the titles, as we usually do in our adventure watches. But navigation here is actually a full-blown navigation. So you can do route navigation, you can do point of interest navigation, you can see your breadcrumb, meaning that track after you when you go out running. So you can do navigation, but the only thing you won't have in this watch is the offline maps. So those are not in this watch. We have it in other watches, in the high-end watches, but in this watch we want it to be straightforward. You have the clear track there, you can follow a route if you want. There are a few special tools, so we have kind of reminders that you can adjust in this watch if you want to have a fuel reminder, a nutrition reminder, or a return reminder on an out and back run. So you can have these kind of reminders adjusted. You can have a metronome that will give you the cadence, give you the rhythm of your running. And the reason the lap screen is here, that we actually have a voice guidance that can be now connected with your headset directly to the watch. No need to carry your phone with you. You can get the voice guidance directly from the watch. And the reason the lap screen, the voice guidance actually is tied to the laps. So when a lap comes, you get the summary of that lap as voice guidance. The last screen here is about recovery HR. So when you stop your log, you will have a 3-minute period of logging your heart rate if you so want. You don't need to be stuck 3 minutes before saving your log, but you can if you want. And if you do, you will have the graph of 3 minutes that is starting at the end of your log, so it will not be sort of part of the log, but it will be shown in the log summary, both in the watch and in the Suunto app, so you can watch it afterwards, how well your heart rate recovered. And then the more part, so we have a bunch of different sports in this watch, even though it's a running watch. We know runners do other sports as well. So we want to support also them with the sports that are most common for runners. And even if you wouldn't be a runner, you can buy this watch for some of these other sports. So this, we have 34 different sports. It's a little bit less than we have in our higher end watches, but it is covering the most essential sports that we have, especially in our own database. We can see that these are really popular sports. And one thing that I always want to mention, in our Suunto app, you can connect to other services as well, and Strava being one of the most important ones there. People seem to love that service, but there are like more than 300 different services in the Suunto app that you can connect to. So it's really whatever service you are using out there, it's most likely it's already connected to the Suunto app. It means that you as a user, you can go and give your credentials to that service and connect your own data, sending your logs over to that service, and it will then be visible in that service. And you can disconnect it at any time if you so want. And as I said, people also want to use our watches in their daily life when they are not out running, so we want to support that in a nice way. And for that one, we have something that we call widgets. And widgets mean that we have like a bunch of different screens that you can have in addition to your, let's say, watch face, that you can browse through different information. You can also connect or you can switch these off and on in the watch. In the Suunto app, you can even change the order in which they appear in the watch. So you can select the most important ones that you want to have there. And I'm not going to go in detail through all of these, but basically I am going through a few of them. So we have daily activity, tracking your calories and steps. That's an obvious one. Many people also want to sleep with the watch so that they get the sleep metrics, you get the duration, you get the different phases of the sleep, and you get the HRV, the heart rate variability from your night of sleep, which is a good indicator for recovery. We have a daily heart rate. You can at any time, we have the optical heart rate nowadays, so at any time you can go in and look at your daily heart rate. You can also measure your blood oxygen if you want. That's more popular for people going up in the mountains, really high up, so that you actually want to know that are you good with your oxygen or not. And then we have a feature that helps you relax and recover. So we have a breathing guide, sort of inhale, exhale rhythm that gives you, when you go into this widget, you can then do this kind of breathing exercise and helps you relax and recover and take it easy if you have had a heavy training day. In this watch, we have offline music, and that means that, as I said before, you can connect your headset directly to the watch, so you don't need to go via your phone. If you do that, and if you want to listen to offline music, the way you do it is you actually need to go down and dig your hard drive for those MP3 files and deliver them to the watch. You do that by connecting the watch with the cable to your laptop, and you are just dragging them there as if it would be a hard drive. So then you have them on the watch, and in the Suunto app, you can then organize them in playlists. And then you can go out and run and listen to music without having your phone with you. And then you, of course, also get the voice guidance on every lap. So you're all covered for your run. And there's some other tools. These are examples of the widgets. So we have a weather widget that gives you the current weather and the forecast for this day, a few hours forward. And then we have a sun and moon widget, which gives you the sunset, sunrise time for like based on the last location you have been on. And we also have altitude and pressure. These are examples of widgets, and as said, we have quite a few other widgets there as well. So there are quite a bit of information to go and look at. And some other things, we have this kind of control panel that we call it, where you can control different things depending on how you want to have it. So there are super many options here how you can configure this watch to be exactly good for your particular purpose. For example, alarm clock, you can adjust it to wake you up when your sleep target is complete. Or the flashlight, you can nowadays, we used to have the white flashlight, now we have also a red one, so that's one additional feature there to save your eyes from the white light. Good for you to know that there is, of this watch, there is a Chinese version which contains this Alipay feature. And the reason I'm telling here is just good for you to know that there is also a separate version. It is the same watch otherwise, but it contains an Alipay feature that enables you to pay in China, mainland China, with the Alipay offline payment. So that's a nice feature for those users. In a nutshell, I think one of the most important thing here is that this is a really lightweight and small and comfortable watch to wear while running. I know that's important for runners. So that's a thing I really want to note there. And then the easy to use watch UI. Easy usability, good usability is something that is not specific for any specific target audience. Everybody loves easy to use watches, so that's something that is good to raise. 34 different sports, so we have more than running. We have breadcrumb navigation and super accurate GNSS, GPS, called nowadays GNSS. So that's good to go. Run-specific sport modes, as you saw, we have a few specifics for runners. I would say quite distinctive Suunto design, so you will see this out on the trail and you will notice it's a Suunto for sure. And the battery life here is really competitive, so we are good there. And obviously activity and recovery tracking is there as well. Few words about the lineup and accessories. I talked to you about the 4 different styles that we have, so lime, frost gray, all black and coral orange. And then if you look at the compatibility, we have a few things in our own lineup that can be directly used. First of all, it's good to mention that the charging cable here is slightly different from earlier Suunto watches, so that will be a new one, not actually compatible with earlier ones. Whereas the straps are compatible with pretty much all the straps we have been doing for last, I would say, 3 years or so, when we have been doing 22mm straps with quick release. So it's really nice and easy to change the strap. So you can have for everyday use a separate strap and then change it to another strap if you want to buy accessory straps for race purpose, for example. As I said, headphones are compatible, not only Suunto's own headphones, but also any other Bluetooth compatible headsets. And the same goes with the heart rate belt, of course, Suunto's heart rate belt, but also other Bluetooth capable heart rate belts will work as well. It comes in a packaging that you're familiar with if you have seen Suunto products from a few years back. And in the package, you will actually have 2 different lengths of the straps, and the charging cable, of course, and all the things you need to get going. I know this product most likely will be quite much compared to Suunto Race S, which is sort of the next one in our lineup. It is very similar sized. So if you look at the differences here, this watch has the offline music, which is what the Race S doesn't have, because you cannot connect headsets to the Race S because of actually technical reasons. Then we have the Alipay in China. That's small difference, not so relevant for rest of the world. And then the sport modes, we have slightly less sport modes in the Run compared to Race S. In the other race products, we have like more than 100 different sports. whereas here we only have 34. And then the maps, the offline maps, we have offline maps in the race and we don't have them in the run. And also the Suunto Plus is not compatible with Suunto Run. So Suunto Plus is sort of the app store of Suunto watches that is compatible with the race series and the vertical, but not with the run. And we have slightly less battery hours compared to the race, and otherwise they are pretty similar as watches, except the weight, which is much lighter in the Suunto Run. So that's sort of a quick comparison, which I guess people will run into when they look at Suunto Run as a new product in the product family. The product family as such looks like this. So the Suunto Run pops up in our kind of adventure or performance watches next to the Suunto Race and Suunto Race S, whereas we want to classify the vertical Suunto 9 Peak Pro and the Core on the adventure side. And then we have, of course, Suunto Ocean, which is kind of our flagship with both dive and adventure. So that's the lineup, and that's the run that we are talking about today. And I hope you got something out of this presentation about our new fantastic running watch. Kiitos means thank you in Finnish, so that's also good for you to know.
Shall we do it like this? Can you hear me now?
That's good.
You know, it's always like this when you think of this modern world. You think printers work, but they never do. But you know what works? Our Suunto Run watch. No, I wanted to say thank you to Markus and thank you to Neil over there online. I think we all got super inspired about what running is about. At least I got inspired. I gotta admit, I've already heard Neil's talk already a few times before, but each time I get something new from his, from everything that running's been before, and especially women only in the 80s have been participating to marathon. That's always like so astonishing to me. But thank you so much. We've been hearing a lot of details of the Suunto Run watch. We've been hearing about running, and we also have got some nice comments from you online, and let me refresh my mind. So there was Patrick, for example, asking about the GPS on the watch, and also M. Kane asking about the double band GPS navigation. I might know the answer, but I still want to make sure I get it all right, so I'll hand over to Markus to respond to this.
I love these technical questions. So the GPS in the watch, if the question was only about the dual band, that is, the watch has dual band GPS. So you have the L1 and L5 frequencies both there. It has the same GPS chip as our flagship product, so it is a super accurate GPS.
So we just heard from behind the scenes that there was a question, was the altitude, let me check. So the altitude on GPS, or is there a barometer in this watch? That was probably the either or.
Yes, so it is based on both is the answer. So essentially, yes, there is a barometer, but we are using GPS as well to make it the reference correct.
Thank you. I think we got the answer now. We also got one question about the availability of the product in each of the markets. So like mentioned in the beginning of the call, the product will be launched next week on Tuesday, the 13th of May. So that's the date that we will be publicly announcing it. We will be publishing the web pages, for example, and in addition to that, some of the regions will also get it available. So for example, the American region, China, Japan, and Korea will be some of the first regions that will get the product immediately in sale. Or not in sale, but available for purchase. My mistake. And then after that, in beginning of June, on the 3rd of June, the EMEA region will then get also the Suunto Run available. And then after that, a week from there, there's also going to be the rest of the Asian markets getting the availability of the product. And my colleague here behind the scene has just now sent you the list of the regions which are getting the products there one after the other in a rolling manner, like agreed and like just mentioned. Let me check my notepad here. So if you still have any questions, don't hesitate to drop them there. Apparently, there are still some questions, and let me scroll down to see what that's about. So, US and UK pricing is one of the questions. So, on the slides which Marcus just shared, the price point is at €249, which will then be also converted to the US prices according to what's the correct term? According to the currency of the date. Then there's also a question about the track mode that is wished to also come on the Race S watch. And also, what is the storage available for music on the Run? Maybe Marcus, you can answer to this.
So first, the music. It's 4 gigabytes of music, so there will fit quite many MP3 songs. And the answer about the track mode for the race, we actually have the track mode on the race. What we don't have yet is the algorithm for actually following the exact geometry of the track. So we have the track running sport mode there, but I can really reveal that much that we are kind of working on that to happen as well. So hopefully at some point you will have track running on the other watches as well. Was there still some other?
And then apparently my mic is working. Can I have a note from Neil? Yes, I got a note from Neil, so it's working. Yes, there was an interesting question from 5K Runner as well. What is the dual band manufacturer? Is it, for example, Synapsis, Sony, or Aroha? I will love to answer this question, but I once again would say Marcus is more prepared for this one.
It's good. Yeah, I think I mentioned it. It's the Sony chip, same chip as we have in the other watches. So that's a good news.
Some technical issues that we have. Please bear with us. We are. Let me check once more the questions. I think that most of them have been already answered. And now, since there was one more, will the marathon mode be available in the firmware or other watches? I believe marathon mode is already Suunto Plus feature, but please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I don't think we don't have plans to build it in like as an own sport as it is in the Suunto Run, so that probably will remain only in Suunto Run, but similar feature is available for other watches in the Suunto Plus store, so it is sort of existing.
And then there was one more question. Does the Suunto Run use the same heart rate sensor, or is it a new one?
That is a new one, so it's a different heart rate sensor than the other watches.
Simple and short. Then I think we have time for one more answer, or let's put it two. So there was, for example, one question, is the product made in China or Finland? Let's cover that. And then the second question, will other watches benefit from the enhanced reworked UI? So production and UI.
So the Suunto Run is manufactured in China, and that's clear. And regarding the other question, it is actually built on a separate software platform, so it's not automatically that the features will transfer from one to the other, but we will of course take all the input that we hear from the launch of Suunto Run and take all the goodies and try to put them over on the other watches as well. So can't promise anything special, but that's how we will work on this one.
Well, time is up at this point, but we do have one further treat, because then we can do it so that we answer one, then we will answer the chat, and you will have the recording of the call. So anything that you've missed, you can always come back to once you will have the recording of the call. But let me check the one or few that we have there. In short, are there key differences between Run and Race S that Run does not have maps and the battery life is shorter? I believe that this question is mostly about the positioning of the two. I can answer this. So Suunto Race S, when you think of the possible person, why would they choose Race S over the Suunto Run? That's definitely the case, that since Race S comes with the offline maps, also it comes with a more elaborate list of sport modes. It's definitely made for somebody who's willing to do more than just running and maybe the most popular sports, maybe the strength training that comes, for example, as one of the sport modes out of the 34 that comes with Suunto Run, whereas then the Suunto Race S comes with over 100 sport modes. So there's a clear difference, and that's also why the price point is different between the two products. There is a question, will the US tariffs have an impact on the price? I would say this is something that we follow closely due to some of the latest changes in the tariffs. And I suggest we will be following up the situation closely. And since I just mentioned that the product will be available in the Americas next week, you will have your answer at least visible on the Suunto.com page once we come out with the products. So unfortunately, I'm not capable to answer this straight away. Do you have something on this, Marcus?
My current understanding is that the tariffs don't concern watches because of certain US reasons.
Yep. And then I think that we could hop to the question to Neil. There was a question, how do you know, well, you've been studying running a lot, and there's a question, does he know or do you know studies about differences between men and women in very long distance run? We probably all know the case of Courtney Dahlwater, who's an extremely successful athlete, especially in the longest distances. Do you have something to add on this, Neil?
Yeah, well, and Jasmine Paris as well from my own country, similarly. I mean, that I know that. I mean, I'm a sociologist rather than a kind of a physiologist, exploring the nature of performance. But I know that the gap between male and female athletes has narrowed hugely over the last few years at ultra distance, and in fact, there's kind of increasing amounts of evidence that women perform just as well as men, and in some cases beat them. So is that gap going to close further as more and more women get involved in sports like ultra running? So as I was mentioning in my talk, there are fewer women involved in ultra running at the moment. Now, if you double the number of participants, potentially the gap will narrow even further. But as I say, on the physiological side of things, that's not my area.
Thank you for that. I think, yeah, it's a super interesting area, and I think that we all agree that there's some really, really peak performing athletes who show that women can also be capable to beat those guys. So let's rock that in the future as well. Thank you. I think we are over time now. We will check all the comments in the chat and make our best to answer all of them, even though that would have happened after our show now. I want to thank Neil for being present with us today, and also Marcus for the great presentation on the Suunto Run. But most of all, I want to thank you all for being so active on the chat, and also so many of you we see online, some new faces as well. It's a really, really huge pleasure and a nice, exciting atmosphere that we have here, and super stoked to have you guys hearing a lot what is Suunto Run about. So that's for next week, and at this point I'll say thank you and kiitos and bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.